Hey everyone, welcome to today's session of the Unifying API Tech Talks we have for this community. It's a good to have some of you joining us back again, and for those who may be new, welcome to this community. So let's get things started. If you're new to this community, this is a project that was originally initiated in Madrid from Luis Cuellar. The intention for this community was to empower practitioners and developers across Apigee and application integration at that time in Madrid, in Spain. But for now, we've taken the next step for this community and we're taking it global. So if you want to, we would love for you to share with us from which part of the world you're joining this session. It'll be great to see which part we're having people joining us. So yeah, the purpose of all of these sessions will be for you to get to know better, learn new things, and keep on updated on the new updates we have for you regarding Apigee and application integration. So welcome everyone. The simple rules that we have for these bi-weekly or weekly sessions, depending on the panel we have, we're always going to have a tech talk presentation by a Google Cloud expert. In this case, today we have two presenters for you. At the end, we'll go to Q&A for whatever was presented, or if you'd like to have a bit of an office hours and bring other topic-related questions for all things APIs and integration, those are more than welcome. We're going to meet almost every Thursday around this time, except on holidays and some other exceptions. And also rest assured that all of these sessions will be recorded, so you'll be able to take a look at those through the Google Cloud community. Well, sorry about that. We have changed. Through the Google Developer Program forums. I'll make sure I'll share the link with that to you. You'll be able to find all of the recordings in there as well in the YouTube channel. And I always like to make this call to action to have new people from the community joining us as speakers. So if you would like to share your knowledge around these technologies, you will be more than welcome to joining us at this stage. You can either reach out through the community or via LinkedIn. So I'll be looking forward to hearing from some of you interested in joining us. With that, we're going to have the Q&A towards the very end. We have really valuable content for you today that we want to share with you. So let's wait until all presenters finish up the presentations. But you can leave your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll go through those at the very end. With that, we're going to take a moment to present our speakers for today. We have David Rush. David is an Apigee customer engineer on industry team in North America. He focuses on customers in financial services. He's based in Colorado, and he has been at Google for 6 years. Mainly, his background is in software development, API platforms, and financial industry. So welcome, David. And we also have Aditya. He is a customer engineer at Google Cloud, and he has experience in sales engineering, product engineering, software architecture at companies of various sizes. So thank you both of you for joining us today in this community session. So take it over.
Thank you, Alexandra. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining this morning or this afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm going to take over the screen share real quick here. All right. I'll give that a second to pop up. Okay, so what's our topic for today, this week? We're calling it Bridging the Gap. Unifying Unmanaged APIs with Apigee API Hub and developer portals. So you could probably tell from the title there's a couple of parts of our platform and our product that we're going to be talking about today. There's a lot of excitement and interest happening around our API Hub product. One of the things I do, aside from working with our customers, is I work pretty closely with our product team and partner with them on our API Hub capability. And so I will meet a lot of customers to talk about this, lots of people interested in learning more about what the Hub does, and some of the things that it is now enabling them to do with things like AI-driven agentic applications and stuff like that. So it's a really cool part of our product suite that's getting a lot of interest right now. But we hear a lot of questions from our customers when we get on these calls. It's not uncommon for them to be slightly confused about the role of the Hub, especially as it's new to many Apigee users, and then how that relates to another capability in the platform, which is developer portals, which is a piece that's been around, for a lot longer in Apigee. And so I would hear these kind of questions, right? So we might be, speaking to a customer who says, something like, I'm using a developer portal, and, is there a way for me to track other APIs that are not just ones that exist in Apigee, right? Not just ones that are published in the Apigee gateway, but maybe other platforms. Or maybe they just have internal tools or internal, developers, internal API program, and they want to lock down a portal that they can use that's kind of just for internal users to govern and manage APIs. And it's less about kind of publishing out to, a public audience. And then on the flip side, I've heard questions more recently about the API hub. We show it to some of our customers, and they ask questions like, hey, can I take this hub? I like the work, what it does and the functions it provides, but can I make a version of that available to the outside world? So kind of the opposite question. And, can I maybe add some other functionality in the hub? Or change the way it looks and feels. Maybe instead of it being, a Google look and feel, can I brand it and style it with my own company's kind of, branding? Or could I even add a blog or a forum or something like that to enhance the functionality? And so that shows us still a bit of confusion about the hub and the portal, and are they the same thing? Are they performing the same function? Is the hub taking over what developer portals used to do in the product? And so the goal today, hopefully, is to, especially if you're not familiar with these parts of the platform, is to clear that up a bit and kind of help explain, what they do and don't do, how they're different, and how they're complementary to each other. And so the first way, I thought would be helpful to just visualize this is in this kind of image. And I got Gemini to create this image for me. And I think it's perfect, actually. I think this is kind of a perfect representation of kind of, if you're thinking about the hub, the API hub, and its role in our platform, in Apigee, and kind of building APIs, you can kind of think of the API hub like the factory, and the name, the name of the hub kind of gives you an idea that it's really meant to be the center of your kind of API universe, right? But you can think of the hub like it's where everything gets made. It's where your warehouse is for all of your APIs, all of the parts that make up your API ecosystem, and it kind of is like the assembly line, right, for all your APIs. Right? So if you think about these new APIs being created, moving through a process, some APIs are brand new. They're just being, the initial stage of design and creation, and they kind of move through a process, a life cycle, and steps happen. The things get refined and built out more, and there's quality testing and things that happen kind of along that assembly line before an API is finally ready and is released. So you can kind of think of hub like that. It's really the nerve center of the production of your APIs. And so the hub is really as a capability, it's mostly geared around your API developers, like within an organization that are producing APIs. Now, if we contrast that to developer portals, which we're going to talk about as well, you can think about those more like a storefront, right? It's like the digital storefront for your finished APIs, your finished API products. So it is where the end result, the APIs that are ready for people to try out and then start using, and this is application developers that are going to come in and start building apps or AI agents or whatever it might be against these APIs, right? And so you need a place where you can publish those out, and there's a bit more gloss around that, right? So there's marketing maybe, and material and user guides and information that you might want to put in front of an end user, a customer. In a different way, you're gonna present this than you would for an internal audience, right? So you can think of developer portals as very much more focused on the users of your APIs, the consumers of your APIs, and you can think about other things that you might do if you were to go into this virtual storefront. You want to browse and see what things are available. You might want to try some of the products out, and then of course you might want to actually go ahead and subscribe or purchase to a product, right? So hopefully that kind of gives you, maybe especially for any non-technical folks on the call here, maybe that gives you a clearer distinction of these two. Now, the important thing, like I said earlier, we get questions sometimes saying, can I just get away with just having a hub? Like, I've only got internal APIs. Do I really need a portal? I think I can just do everything with a hub. And our answer to that is no. The API hub by itself is not a substitute for a dev portal. It doesn't do everything that a portal can do, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And so they're really about serving different purposes, and like we said, they're kind of aimed at different personas, right? Hubs more meant on that producer side, and then dev portals are kind of meant on that the consumer side, right? They do overlap. There is some stuff that's similar, and that's maybe what drives a bit of the confusion there. But really, the idea is that they're complementary, right? These are tools that work together. They form a unified system, a unified set of capabilities that give our customers the ability to create new APIs in a streamlined way and govern them, and then of course publish them out so that people can ultimately use them, right? So both of the tools have really crucial capabilities that you need to build an overall successful API program. So if we look in a bit more depth, let's look at, we probably won't go through every point here, but this is kind of like a Venn diagram that shows some of that overlap, right? And you'll see there's some stuff in the middle here where you have capabilities like being able to list out APIs, right? Or being able to discover APIs. So a user, a developer, might come into either an API hub, and they have the ability to search for APIs. They can see what APIs exist within an organization. They can even view and download API specs, right? And a similar function exists in the developer portal, but again, it's really meant for a different person, right? Potentially, right? So for the hub, the person coming in to try and find APIs and discover APIs is typically going to be someone who's responsible for building new APIs. Maybe they want to see if something already exists within the organization, right? To figure out if that can be reused, or if they can incorporate that somehow somewhere else without duplicating and creating new. And so this is the hub's role in discovery is more about preventing sprawl, API sprawl, preventing duplication, and kind of helping with reuse, right, amongst new API development. Whereas on the dev portal side, it's more about how do I build applications that use these capabilities, and how can I find and learn about how to actually leverage APIs from a provider. But that's where some of the confusion, I think, comes in, because it seems like very similar functionality. But if you look on the outside of this Venn diagram, there's a lot more happening that's unique to each of these tools, right? So if we look at the top here, the first thing probably to really point out that's important is the audience for the tool and who can get access to these tools, right? So the hub, and I'll show you it in a minute, is a capability, a tool that's offered through the Apigee or the Google Cloud Console, right? So it's you get to it like you do if you're using the rest of Apigee to build and deploy APIs, right? You log into the Cloud Console. That means you have to have credentials through your organization. You have to have the right permissions. You get in. You're accessing this as a user of the organization. Now, that's not to say that's the only way that Hub functionality can get exposed, because Hub offers an API itself, and some of our customers and our partners are already exploring how can they incorporate some of the data and the functionality that the Hub offers to power things like agents that you might be able to use to interact with the Hub, learn about things that exist in the registry, and so on, right? Answer questions about APIs and whatnot. But primarily, it's meant, again, for internal users, whereas on the dev portal side, it is by nature kind of an external audience, right? So it's not offered as a native Google Cloud UI, right? There are different kinds of portals, and Aditya is going to talk a bit more about that in a bit. But none of them are kind of accessed directly through the Google console. It's going to be an external kind of facing tool. Now, that's not to say that only external users can use them, right? Internal users in an organization could certainly log in to consume APIs if they're building, apps off of that. A few other things important to point out. The Hub is really kind of platform agnostic, right? It can list and it can store and show APIs that exist anywhere, right? They might be running or deployed on an Apigee gateway. They might be deployed on another kind of API gateway. They might not even be in a gateway. They might just be a service that exists somewhere in a repo, or it's information coming from some other source, some other tool. Developer portals tend to be focused around Apigee, right? They're a bit more tightly coupled to Apigee, especially our integrated portal, which is really only showing you APIs that are managed and deployed through an Apigee gateway itself. The other important thing, like I said, Hub can store information about APIs and track those APIs across the whole life cycle. So that means from the very first conceptual design phase, so when somebody creates a new API spec, or even just has an idea for an API that they are going to build, they can register that in the Hub at that point and start to put metadata in there. And then that will be refined as that thing moves through the life cycle. Eventually, if it goes live, that will be reflected in the Hub. And then even at some point, it's going to be deprecated maybe or retired. So it's not available for use anymore. But that record and the existence of that API, you still track and have that history in the Hub. You contrast that to a developer portal. Developer portal is much more about showing these consumers the APIs that are available to be used now, the live APIs that someone can subscribe to, they can try out and actually use. And that means that API is deployed somewhere. And maybe it's the actual live back end of the API. Maybe it's just a sandbox for testing, but it is an API that is actually up and running and people can call it. There's a lot more here. We're going to go through some of these things in a bit more depth, and then we have some upcoming sessions where we're going to cover some of this in even more depth. But if you look at the Hub, the rest of the functionality there is largely around creation of APIs, like we said, right? So it's being able to store a lot more rich metadata and information, which can come from many different sources about APIs. You can automate events, SDLC kind of lifecycle events as APIs move through those stages of production, and then you can drive other processes with them. You can do things like tracking dependencies between APIs, which is, for the producers of an API in an organization, or the platform team, this can be really important to know what things are, calling other things and what they're dependent on when changes occur, what might be affected, and so on. And then, of course, a big part of what the hub does is helping you. Once you've got everything in one place, you can start to define some rules, some style guides, and the hub has capabilities that will do checks and let you know if APIs are being created that are not following those standards, right? And then down here at the bottom, there's some really cool other capabilities I'll touch on here in a minute. How once you've got that information in the hub, how can that then assist the developers, the creators of APIs and agents as well, so AI agentic applications, to build and leverage, build new APIs and then leverage those in those kind of apps. On the dev portal side, again, Adichie is going to cover some of this, but it's much more about catering to that user. So we give more customization of the look and feel of the tool, so you can put your own branding and styling on it. You can publish custom content, right? So your own pages, your own user guides. It could be marketing material. It could be blogs, community type features, right, are possible in the portal. And then it offers the ability for developers, and this is, again, it might be external developers outside of a company, to onboard themselves and start to discover and then register and consume in a self-service way. So they can do it themselves without having to email or manually interact with people, right? They can start to quickly build and innovate using APIs. They can obtain credentials and all that good stuff, right? And that does not exist in the hub. So the hub is not about enabling users to come in and create application keys and manage that life cycle, but they link together so that you can kind of build the end-to-end piece here. So let's talk a bit more about the hub real quick. So, and then we'll pivot into portal, right? So what does the hub do? Let's look in more depth. So it's about giving you a way to make that API data, wherever it exists, more useful, right? During the life cycle, during the creation of APIs. So you really want a way to be able to bring in information about APIs across your organization. And we find that many customers are using lots of different tools and platforms in the process of developing and managing APIs. There are different source code repos. There might be different systems of record that track metadata about APIs. There might be multiple gateways. There's often multiple gateways at our customers where different teams are hosting and running these things. And everything's kind of spread out, and there isn't really one single view. And so the hub gives you a way to start to collect and merge that information into one single source of truth. So you can see everything that you have, and that allows you to start doing more interesting stuff to streamline the process, right? And that includes things like applying standards and governance, starting to put more controls about how APIs get created, how they move through that life cycle, how do they adhere to best practices and conventions, and are they secured properly? And that can apply wherever the API is, whatever gateway or system it might be running on. The other thing that the hub does, which we're going to cover some of this in more depth next week, if you come back and join me next week, we'll show how the life cycle, kind of that assembly line that we were talking about, how we can automate more of that. So it's not a manual process of the API moving through that life cycle. It's more streamlined. There is an event-based model built into the hub, which is very powerful and allows you to hook in and streamline your kind of SDLC, your API SDLC. And then the other really exciting thing now is around agent tooling, which I'll talk about here in a second. So again, the hub is about giving you the core of the hub. There's a universal kind of catalog, right? It's that universal source of truth to consolidate your API information. give users the capability to find and reuse, right? So there is that discovery piece, in the hub, and the hub comes with a pretty powerful AI-powered search within it. It gives you the way to define information, rich API information, taxonomy, attributes about your APIs that covers that full life cycle. And then it does things like quality checking, automated linting, and stuff like that. This is the piece I mentioned a moment ago about automating that life cycle. And again, we're going to cover this in more depth next week. So come back and see me present next week. I'll just give you a preview of this now. Is that Hub has integration with a Google Cloud product called EventArc, which enables you to hook in to different events that happen. We use this across GCP. Many different products plug into EventArc. It's a very powerful way of kind of driving automation, and we use that in the hub. So as things happen in the API hub, you can trigger off really anything that you want to happen as an API is created or as it moves along the life cycle, and that allows you to build kind of very powerful workflows and integrate that kind of into your life cycle. Another thing, another really neat thing that Hub empowers is developers creating APIs, new APIs. Now you've got this single source of truth, right? What we call enterprise context, right? Which exists in the Hub, all the information, all the metadata about your APIs. We can use that in assisting developers in creating new APIs. And we offer that capability through one of our other products, which is the Gemini Code Assist offering, right, which is a coding assistant, and that developers can use that to build applications using AI, basically an AI assistant or an agent that can help do that. And one of the things that offers is new API creation, so design of new APIs using the information about your existing APIs. And so you can interact as a user with the assistant and prompt it and tell it what kind of API you want, and it will generate a design for you, but it will incorporate elements and conventions out of your existing APIs, which it gets from the hub. And it can also tell you as a developer if maybe you're creating something that already exists in the hub. Maybe you are creating a duplicate, and it can kind of let you know that up front, and then maybe suggest that you reuse something that's already there. And we'll cover that again a bit more next week as well. And then the agentic stuff, which we'll have an upcoming webinar more about this as well, which is now you've got this enterprise context, the information about your APIs and all the specs they contain in the hub. If you're using some of our agent development frameworks, like the Google Agent Development Kit, you can use that hub and the APIs that exist in it as that source of tooling. If you're familiar with the term agent tooling, we can plug those APIs in as tools for an agent to do something like this. In this example here, maybe an insurance agent that has to go off and do things like filing claims and making requests for membership inquiries and stuff like that. If those things are all powered by APIs that are registered in the hub, we have hooks in these frameworks that can go and directly interact with those APIs. And there's a lot of excitement around that right now as well. So really what the hub is all about is kind of taking that chaos, right, that sprawl, many APIs built many different ways, running in many different places, maybe going under the radar, not managed. It's about bringing those in, organizing that information, bringing some structure to that, making those APIs discoverable, being able to put more lifecycle governance, quality controls, security controls around it, and then enabling really exciting new use cases like streamlining creation of new APIs or powering AI-based agents as well. I'm going to do a really quick tour of the hub itself, and then I will hand over to Aditya to talk more about portals. So if you've never seen the API hub, this is what it looks like. It is inside the Cloud Console. So if you go to Apigee, you'll find it, under the API hub section down here. So if you go to your project, if you've got one, you may find that the hub's already been provisioned. We turn this on automatically for Apigee customers, most Apigee customers. And when you go there, you'll find that you have this landing screen. And as you start to populate the hub, it will show you information about your APIs, right? So it shows you some of the kind of attributes that we track within the hub. So you can see things like, who APIs in the hub belong to from kind of an organizational or team perspective. You can look at things like who's the target audience for these APIs. The hub can track APIs that are meant for internal or external audiences. You can track things like their styles, right? The API styles, and the hub supports a bunch of different formats. It's not just meant for RESTful APIs. You can have GraphQL, gRPC APIs, anything registered in there. For the discovery piece, we have this really nice AI-powered semantic search. So you can come in with a natural language query and look for APIs or maybe specific versions of APIs, or even operations within an API, an existing API. A hub can go all the way down to the actual operation level. So you can really discover if things, APIs or certain data points or operations are already available somewhere before you decide to maybe create a new one. The API entries in hub themselves, they can be created manually, or you can automate this whole process, and that kind of what we're going to cover a bit here and then more next week. But you can see inside these is very rich information about the API that can be stored. So lots of metadata, which is customizable as well. So there's really a very powerful kind of extensible model where users can define any attribute really that they want to track, anything that would be useful on an API. And then of course, all the different versions of the API can be reflected here, along with where they are in their life cycle stage, and the deployments as well. So you can see where these APIs are running. Are they deployed out there on Apigee, or maybe another platform, another gateway perhaps, right? All of those things can be reflected here. So you get a full view of everything about that API, and you can see kind of information at a glance on what's the default version, or what's the default deployment, where should someone begin if they're starting to look at an API. And then you've got things like linting checks down here as well. So as API specs are uploaded, you can view those specs in the hub, right? But then you can also see if there are actually any issues with them. So the hub will do checks based on a style guide, which you can define. And if there are errors or warnings, the hub will tell you about that. In another upcoming session, we're going to talk about, in more depth about how the APIs get onboarded into the hub. So how can you populate your catalog, your hub, with existing APIs that you have, right? And there's a whole system of what we call plugins that you can use to bring these in from Apigee, different kinds of Apigee flavors actually we have coming, and then maybe even other gateways as well. So lots more we'll cover here in an upcoming session. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Aditya, and he's going to start talking about developer portals.
Thank you so much, David. Okay, so I hope that gave a really clear picture. If you're a platform owner or a platform consumer at an organization, how API Hub can help you understand a very clear picture of what's available, what can be built, how to build it, what are some standards, and if you're a developer, how do I discover what's already there so I don't duplicate functionality, and so on, right? But this is the assembly line, this is the factory and the warehouse where products are being built and created, right, and governed. That process is being governed. But then comes the next step, which is you want to activate and engage a rich and thriving developer ecosystem that produces the kinds of apps and experiences you may not have time for example, right? Or it might make more sense for your development partners to build those experiences because they have the right data or the right orchestration, for example. And you want these development partners who are in your ecosystem to be able to quickly, on day zero, discover what APIs you offer, how they work, right? And to self-service onboard themselves, right? Like minimize the amount of labor and effort you need to put in to onboard, right? Like a poor example of this is a team sending a static file containing API specs over email to a customer to go and figure out how to build against the API. There are a number of problems with that. For example, you can't update the spec, and you have to manually generate authentication credentials for that developer. And then if they accidentally go on a webinar like just now and share their screen and show their API key, they might contact you at 2 a.m. to kind of take down that API key. So day zero discovery, day one understanding and building, and day two operations, just general maintenance of those APIs, including security, key rotation, and everything else. You need tooling for this that's visible and available to anyone, not just the people who have access to your GCP console or to your API Hub APIs, right? Additionally, it would be great if your portal acted also as a central area for your ecosystem to converge in, have discussions, ask questions, and just interact with your company, right? So those are the types of problems that the developer portal and the distribution ecosystem, right, inside Apigee helps you with, right? So your first step is to actually build those APIs, which means deciding what the shape of it is going to be. What is the consumption model that you've planned that makes sense for your market that you want to launch? And then actually publish it, right? So that productization step is a major milestone and it takes a lot of effort. But now, how do you attract and engage those developers? So the number one thing, right, over our decades of experience doing this and helping customers launch and build and manage their developer ecosystems is they need great developer experiences. Think about it, like when you, as an internet user, open up your browser, you expect some kind of place that you can go to do what you need to do, right? Like a social media site, for example. So similarly, developers, just like all other users, have come to experience some table stakes in terms of how they expect your management to work. And Apigee provides the tooling for you to create those developer experiences. So starts with a great API portal, which acts as a storefront, right? And I'll show you some of that in just a second. Well thought out API product design. And again, that means having a good portal that can be a home for that and a home for the developers to interact and do everything else. Now, before we go to the next slide, one quick complexity, if you think about it, is we want Apigee to solve for API problems, period, right? And that means developer experiences need to cater to everything from a startup that's using Apigee to securely govern their APIs, but they have like one API product that's their main API, and that's what they want to sell to developers, and they need to quickly execute and build it out and send it out, and they don't want to worry about managing it. That's on the one extreme. On the other side, you might have a traditional multinational enterprise with lots and lots of sub organizations that all have differing needs. Some portals need to be internal only, which act as a platform for other teams, and some need to be external visible portals, and with a lot of functionality that's specific to your business as well. I'll try and show some of these examples in just a second. So no one approach is going to be a great fit for everything, because if you overcomplicate the solution, then for the simple team that needs something quick, that will become a barrier to configure every single widget, right? On the other side, if you only have a simple option, then people quickly find that they want to customize more than what's available out of the box, and they need an option for that that can support that. So Apigee's distribution and developer portal subsystems, they give you the flexibility and range to engage all of these things. So on the simple side, we have the integrated portals. I'll show that in my demo in just a second. In those integrated portals, it's delivered as a SaaS feature. It's completely managed by Apigee. It's deeply integrated into Apigee. It supports some lightweight theming and customizations, and it supports light to intermediate audience management. You can have up to 10 of these per Apigee organization, and up to 800,000 developers registered on that. And I'll show an example of that in just a second. And then the next step is the open portal, where we have some modules and quick starts available for popular web development platforms such as Drupal or Firebase or some modern front-end web frameworks. They build upon Apigee's API, right? Like David was saying, Hub has some APIs. Apigee as a platform itself has some APIs to publish your APIs. And these open portals actually use that API to build their functionality on. And on the final level of customization, Apigee has a deep and rich partner ecosystem, lot of breadth, lot of depth, and it's global, right? In every region, we have lots of experienced partners. And these partners have built their own solutions on top of Apigee's APIs with very specific and advanced features. So some examples are API Boost by Achieve, API Dex by AppyThings, and Zero Gravity Developer Portals by Pronovix. You can find them online, right? And they offer things like multi-tenancy, multi-org support, data residency controls, detailed user and collaboration management features. So that is on the extreme end, right? So that's the variety that's available. So I would like to show you a few things on my screen now. So first, what's possible, with the integrated developer portal. One example I like to show a lot is this one. Just a second, share screen. So this is an example of the integrated developer portal, right? Keep in mind that I will be able to breeze through this by just signing up, signing in, with no access controls. But this is customizable, right? You can make sure that only developers that are allowed, only after approval can they actually browse the APIs or use the APIs and things like that. But this portal makes it really simple. So I've already signed up with this create an account. It just sends me an email, right? And once I've signed up, I'm going to sign in. And like I was saying earlier, I'm a developer and I want to understand how to use these APIs. So I'm going to go to APIs and see that a number of products have been published. And this portal is themed and styled according to the company's brand. There is that logo and all the customization, CSS customization over here. And I can actually try to use the API by going and browsing the documentation. And all that the portal platform had to do, platform team, was upload an open API specification. And Apigee portal will render a live portal that can be used, right? If I try to execute this, right now, this will fail, right? Because I did not provide an API key. So how do I get an API key? That's the self-service magic, right? So I can go to my apps and define my own app. And like I was saying earlier, I've done this before, shared the API key, so I'm going to revoke it in just a second. But I got an API key now, so I can go back to the article search and authorize by providing that key, and then run my search again. And this time I can try out the API and understand how it works, and I can browse the schema, right? So this is what's possible with the integrated developer portal. The next example, I'll just quickly switch to the window to see if there are any questions in chat. None so far on this. Okay, so you have these APIs, and this is what's possible with the integrated portal. This is fully managed by Apigee, even though you can have a custom domain name and everything, right? But the next step is you might want something a bit more complicated. You want a lot more control over not just the CSS of what's displayed, but also the HTML content itself, right? But at the same time, you don't want to go out and build a whole complex thing by yourself. So that's an example of this portal, which is built on Drupal, and it's customized with themes, and it uses the Apigee APIs via a Drupal plugin, right? So Apigee publishes a Drupal plugin that you can install, and it provides access to what are my APIs, what are the API specs and everything else. You have the same functionality to register and log in, but because this is a more custom portal, you have custom workflow steps like terms and conditions of use and everything else, right? I've gone through this, so I'm going to click login, and you can see an API reference and a forecast API, and I can try out the API with a similar interface that you saw in the internal portal, but with different changes that make sense to this particular business on how they want to demonstrate their APIs. And I have my apps, and there is a pretty simple view of what products and what are my analytics, and I can delete my app as well. And the final thing I want to show is an example of an even more complex portal, right? And this is also built on Drupal, but this has much more functionality. There's a cookie banner. I was logged out due to inactivity. When I register, I have to provide a few more details. And when I create my APIs, right? Sorry, I need to keep a passcode just a second. When I create my APIs, there's a lot more complexity. Am I building a B2B2C app or a standard app? Am I using a partner product access code? These are the types of built-in workflow features that you can customize your portal with. And as you can see, like there are a lot of extensive APIs available on this product. So that was a quick example of or a showcase of different types of portals and the level of functionality you can get in each. I'll just wait for a second if there are any questions here. If not, I'll switch to the next demo where we will show some of this live. Okay, no questions. So I'll stop sharing this window. Let's jump into our Apigee window in just a second. Okay. So I've got a Apigee environment over here, right, in this project integration demo. Currently, I have not many API proxies, no API products, right? I did create a test portal, right? It's super easy, a one-click step to create that integrated portal. And when I click on it, it shows me this. This is the default view. Like I was telling you earlier, you can publish specific pages. So a quick hack is you can have a blog page and then just keep updating it, from time to time. And you can customize the theme, upload assets, right, such as the logo, background image, and customize the theme. So I hope you can tell how the NYT developer portal was created by adjusting these settings. And there are a number of other settings. You can run some custom JavaScript on it. If you want to customize the email domain, or the actual domain that portal is visible in, you can do so, right? And you can set up custom security features such as manage which users are actually logging in, set up SSO login, right? And ensure that new accounts require approval before they can actually do anything. So those are the types of features that are available. And right now my API catalog is empty. So if I go into APIs, it asks me to sign in. And once I'm signed in, I see that there are no APIs at the moment, right? So in this fictional scenario, I have no APIs, and I come over to API Hub, right? And I see that there are no APIs over here. So I want to start by developing. And I know that I have an unmanaged API sitting somewhere else. It's not on Apigee, but I need visibility as a platform team to see that I'm working on that API and which business unit owns it, which is the team, who are the target users, and things like that. In this demo today, I'll be running some background automation that attendees cannot see. Do attend David's session next week if you want to see some of this magic live and how actually it's working. In the background, there's some scripting that's working with our APIs. So the first thing I'm going to do is deploy that unmanaged API. And I've kicked that off. So just give it a couple of seconds. And in the meanwhile, while we wait, just please feel free to post any questions on chat as well. So that API was launched, right? And now I reloaded the page, and we can see that example business unit and example team has deployed a registered level 3 API maturity that is of the REST API style. And it's actually just for that team's usage. And it's a sample API. And I can see a lot of information about how it works. And for documentation, there is a non-Apigee documentation link. This is an example of bad documentation, right? It's not interactive, and it's difficult to work with. And in order to get anything done, I have to send an email, right? But it's there. It's already registered over here. Now, the next step is you can internally work with this, increase its maturity, make sure it's deployed into Apigee or some other gateway, and so on. In this scenario, what we're going to simulate is an API proxy is created on Apigee to protect this API behind, right, with a few management features. And then that is ready to be shared with my developer ecosystem to be used by third-party developers, right? So that's the next command I'm going to run, right? And it is going to set up some of those things that we talked about just now. And that will take a few additional seconds.
And while that's deploying, we'll mention that what Aditya's demoing here and showing, we actually have this published as a sample out on our public GitHub. And I'll share the link for that here in a second. So if you want to go and try this out yourself after we finish here, we'll give you the link. All you will need is an Apigee environment, and that could be a free trial if you don't have one that you sign up for. You can install the API Hub, create yourself that portal. Like Aditya said, it's very easy. It's just a few clicks, and then the sample that we have on GitHub. This is all kind of scripted, and you can just follow step by step, and you'll be able to do this as well.
Attribute. Okay, I think we have an API Hub question. You want to take that first, David?
Yeah, I'll look at that real quick. So, attribute filtering and regular non-semantic search on a hub. Great question. It is already there. I kind of skipped over that a bit. We'll probably cover it in a bit more depth next week. But there is that listing view. Actually, if you just click on the APIs section on the left nav there, that is the basic kind of full listing, and that has a filter you see at the top of that table, which you can use. It's more of a traditional filter search capability, not like the free text semantic searching. So that is in there. Good question. I see the follow-up. User created attributes. That's something that we're looking to add in so that you can choose what you want to show up and be able to filter on in this view. All right, Aditya.
Great. Yeah. So while you were discussing, like I showed you earlier, there was no API proxy earlier, but now the automation has created an API proxy, right? Which has this base path, and it has a similar set of underlying APIs, right? That are now protected behind this API proxy. And you can see how the proxy actually works in here as well. Now, as an external developer, I don't have access to this section, right? But if I'm an internal platform developer, I can come in here and I can see a few things have changed. Where it is deployed is now reflecting. This is an unmanaged deployment type in test, and this is an Apigee deployment that's in production, right? And the documentation link has changed. It has now updated to that portal, which earlier had no APIs. But now when I come in here and go to APIs, there is a sample product that has come in, right? This is what you can automate with CI/CD that David was talking about. And you can execute and try out that API again, right? And yeah, I think those were the main functionality that I wanted to show you today, right? Any questions? Was that clear? How we went from unmanaged to managed, and how an external developer versus an internal developer can use and understand these APIs.
I don't see more questions in the chat or in the Q&A, but everyone, like Aditya said, feel free to raise your hand and open your mic. This is a free and open forum for all of you. Alrighty. Awesome. Thank you, Aditya. I'm gonna take over to start wrapping up these before we go into more content. More updates I have for you. Quick pause for Q&A in case you would like to. Remember, we have the community forums that's available for you as well. And with that, I share with you a poll so that you can rate the event. If you look to the top right corner, you'll see a blue icon with the poll in there. So we'd love to get your feedback on how satisfied you are with this session. And if you'd like to go further sharing your comments with us, take a look at this QR code and please share your feedback in detail on what sessions you would like to see next. With that, I'm really excited to share back again the invitation for all of you to join us at our new community space for the Apigee and application integration community spaces. I'm gonna paste in the chat the link so that you can have these in handy. For Apigee, you'll see a new structure in there. You'll be able to see you have, apart from the forum, you have a section for Knowledge Hub, events, and news and announcement. Actually, Megan just dropped the release roundup for the recent release notes for Apigee. So it'll be great if you go and take a look on that and just keep up to date on the news we have to share with you. With that, thank you so much, Aditya and David, for this great presentation. Remember, everyone, we're going to make it available through the community. So, and we look forward to seeing you next week back with David.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you,
good day.
team. See you soon.
Yeah.